The skies above Earth changed on a Tuesday morning. 7 large ships appeared suddenly, their surfaces shining like diamonds in the sunlight. People across the world looked up and felt fear grip their hearts. News channels showed the same images. Over and over, strange crystal ships hanging silently above major cities, military jets scrambled worldwide, and governments called emergency meetings. The strange ships made no move to attack, but their sudden arrival caused panic in the streets. "We come in peace and in need," said a soft voice that somehow reached every radio, television, and phone on the planet. The voice belonged to princes. Lyra of the Zephyrian people, Jack Miller, was eating breakfast in the military base cafeteria when the message played. At 28 years old, Jack had already seen more than most. As a medical officer with the Marine unit, he had saved dozens. Lives during the Mars colony crisis 2 years ago. His fellow soldiers respected him for his steady hands and quick thinking. "Lieutenant Miller," called Captain Ava Martinez as she rushed into the cafeteria. "Report to command immediately." Jack followed her through the busy hallways of the base. Everyone moved with purpose, faces tense but determined. "What's happening?" Jack asked. "They want you on the contact team," Ava said, not slowing down. "These aliens are sick, dying, they say." "They're asking for medical help?" Jack's heart beat faster. Alien biology? This was beyond anything in medical school. Inside the command center, screens showed the crystal ships from different angles. General William Porter stood at the center table with several other high-ranking officers. "Miller," the general nodded. "We're sending up a team to meet these Zephyrians. They claim to have a disease that's killing their people. Their leader, some princes, is showing advanced symptoms. We need someone with medical experience and quick thinking." Jack looked around the room. "Sir, surely there are more qualified." "Doctors, we need someone who can handle themselves if things go bad," the general cut in. "Someone who thinks on their feet. Your record from Mars speaks for itself." 2 hours later, Jack sat in a military shuttle rising through the atmosphere. With him were 3 diplomats, 2 scientists, and 4 other soldiers. Nobody spoke much. The enormity of what they were doing, making humanity's first contact with alien life, weighed heavily on everyone. The shuttle approached the largest crystal ship. Up close, Jack could see the surface wasn't solid but seemed to flow like water while maintaining its shape. A section of the ship opened, and the shuttle was guided inside by lights along a pathway. "Remember," said Linda Barnes, the lead diplomat, "we represent all of Earth now. Be respectful but cautious." The shuttle door opened into a large chamber, with impossibly high ceilings. The air smelled like cinnamon and sea salt. 5 tall figures waited for them. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The Zephyrians stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their skin shimmered with an inner light, showing colors that shifted like oil on water. They had human-like faces with large, almond-shaped eyes that reflected light like mirrors. "Welcome, people of Earth," said the Zephyrian in the center, its voice musical and clear. "I am Coral, first guard to Princess Lyra of the Zephyrian Collective." Linda stepped forward and introduced the human team. Jack noticed how the aliens seemed to sway slightly as they stood, almost like underwater plants moved by gentle currents. "We understand your princess is ill," Linda said. "We've brought medical experts who might be able to help." Coral's expression was hard to read, but his tone carried doubt. "Our medical science is thousands of years beyond yours. We have traveled to 17 star systems seeking help. Many advanced civilizations have tried and failed to cure our condition." "Then why come to Earth?" asked Linda. "Because we have tried everything else," Coral said simply. "Follow me to meet the princess." They walked through corridors that seemed to be made of flowing crystal. Jack studied everything, noting how the material pulsed with light in a rhythm similar to a heartbeat. The throne room took Jack's breath away. The ceiling opened to space, showing stars and Earth below, yet the atmosphere remained. In the center sat a delicate chair that appeared to be grown rather than built. In it sat Princess Lyra. Where the other Zephyrians were impressive, she was breathtaking. Smaller than her guards, but with a presence that filled the room. Her skin was almost transparent. with light moving beneath it like dancing stars. Her eyes were large and completely silver, but Jack immediately saw the signs of illness. Patches of her skin had turned dull and cracked like dry earth. Dark lines spread from these patches like veins of decay. "Princess," Coral bowed. "The humans have arrived." Lyra stood gracefully, but Jack saw the effort it took. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice the same one that had addressed Earth. "My people are dying. I am dying. Our bodies are failing us, and we don't understand why." Linda began the formal greetings, but Jack couldn't take his eyes off the spreading darkness on the princess's arm. It was growing visibly, like ink spreading through water. Suddenly, Lyra gasped. Her legs gave way, and she began to fall. Jack moved without thinking. He rushed forward, reaching the princess before her guards could react. He caught her before she hit the floor. The room exploded into action. The guards drew weapons made of the same crystal as the ship. The human soldiers raised their guns. Everyone shouted at once, but Jack focused only on the princess in his arms. Her skin burned with fever where he touched it, and the dark veins pulsed with each labored breath she took. "I'm a doctor," Jack said loudly, looking up at the nearest guard. "Let me help her." Lyra's eyes fluttered open, locking onto Jack's. For a moment, he felt as if he could see into forever. "Stand down," she commanded weakly, and the guards hesitated. "Let him help." "Princess," Coral protested, "these creatures are primitive. They cannot—" "We have nothing left to lose," Lyra said, her voice barely audible. To Jack she whispered, "What is your name, human healer?" "Jack Miller," he answered, already pulling a medical scanner from his pocket, "and I'm going to do everything I can to help you." The guards lowered their weapons but watched Jack's every move with distrust. The other humans remained frozen, unsure what to do. Jack activated his scanner and ran it over the princess's arm where the dark veins spread. The device beeped in confusion, unable to make sense of her biology. "I need to get her to a proper medical facility," Jack said, looking up at Coral. "Either on your ship or ours." Coral seemed torn between suspicion and desperation. Finally, he nodded sharply. "Our medical chamber is this way. But know this, human, if she dies in your care, you will not leave this ship alive." Jack carefully lifted the princess. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, like holding a child. "I understand," he said, meeting Coral's mirrored gaze. "Lead the way." As they moved quickly through the crystal corridors, Jack felt the princess's hand grasp weakly at his uniform. "Why help me?" she asked softly. "We are strangers to your world." Jack looked down at her and answered truthfully. "Because you need help, that's enough for me." For the first time, something like hope flickered in her silver eyes. The medical chamber on the Zephyrian ship looked nothing like hospitals on Earth. Instead of beds and machines, there were pools of glowing liquid and crystal formations that hummed with energy. Jack carefully placed Princess Lyra on a platform that seemed to be made of flowing glass. The surface adjusted to her body, cradling her gently. "Our best healers have tried everything," Coral said, his tone a mix of worry and doubt. "What can you possibly do that they could not?" Jack unpacked his medical kit, trying to hide his own uncertainty. "Sometimes fresh eyes see things others miss," he said. "Tell me everything about this disease." 3 other Zephyrians entered the chamber. They wore robes with complex patterns that seemed to move on their own. Jack learned they were the royal physicians. "It began 6 cycles ago," explained the oldest one, who introduced herself as Alara. "First among our outer colonies, then spreading throughout our worlds. The crystalline structure of our bodies begins to fracture at the cellular level. The dark lines you see are where the breakdown is most severe." Jack listened carefully while examining the princess. Her breathing was shallow, and the dark veins now reached her neck. "May I take samples?" Jack asked. "Blood, tissue, whatever your equivalent might be?" The physicians exchanged looks but nodded. They showed Jack how to use their equipment to extract a small amount of Lyra's essence, a shimmering fluid that was neither fully liquid nor solid. "I need help from our team," Jack said. "We have a scientist who specializes in unusual cellular structures." Soon, Dr. Susan Grant joined them in the medical chamber. Susan was in her 40s with short gray hair and quick, intelligent eyes. She gasped when she saw the Zephyrian medical technology, but quickly focused on the task at hand. "Fascinating," she whispered as she studied the sample through a portable microscope they had brought. "Their cells aren't carbon-based like ours. They're crystalline matrices that channel energy rather than process chemicals." For 3 days, Jack and Susan worked non-stop in the Zephyrian medical chamber. They slept in shifts on cots brought from Earth. The princess drifted in and out of consciousness, growing weaker by the hour. The dark veins now covered most of her body. Other human scientists joined them. Bringing equipment from Earth, the Zephyrian physicians watched with skeptical expressions as the humans set up their primitive-looking tools beside the advanced alien technology. On the 4th day, Jack noticed something while comparing healthy Zephyrian cells with infected ones. "Susan, look at this," he called, not taking his eyes from the microscope. "The healthy cells have this protective layer around them. The sick ones don't." Susan hurried over and looked for herself. "You're right. It's like their immune system is failing, but more specific. They're missing something that maintains their cellular structure." Jack rubbed his tired eyes. What if they're missing something they used to get naturally? Maybe from their home planet? Something that's no longer available? The idea took hold. Jack and Susan began testing the princess's samples against various Earth materials, looking for anything that might stabilize the failing cells. Metals, minerals, plant extracts, nothing worked. "This is useless," growled Coral after watching. "Another failed test. Your primitive science cannot help us." Jack ignored the insult. He was too tired to be offended. "We're missing something. Their bodies need something specific." It happened by accident. Jack had been working for 20 hours straight. While handling a slide with Lyra cells, he cut his finger on the edge. A drop of his blood fell onto the sample before he could stop it. "Contaminated," he muttered, reaching to discard the slide. Susan grabbed his wrist. "Wait, look." Under the microscope, something extraordinary was happening. The human blood cells had burst, releasing their contents. And the Zephyrian cells nearby were ... changing. The dark fractures were closing. The glow was returning. "It's repairing them," Jack whispered in disbelief. They immediately showed the Zephyrian physicians. At first, the aliens refused to believe that primitive human blood could affect their advanced biology. But the evidence was right in front of them. "There must be something in human blood that stabilizes your cellular structure," Susan explained. "Some protein or enzyme that your bodies need." More tests confirmed their theory. Human blood contained compounds that strengthened the protective layer around Zephyrian cells, but not all human blood worked the same way. They tested samples from everyone on the human team. "This is strange," Susan said, reviewing the results. "Jack, your blood shows the strongest reaction by far. The others help a little, but yours causes complete regeneration." Colonel Frank Davis, the military commander of the human team, looked concerned. "So what are you suggesting? We harvest Miller's blood to save the aliens?" "We need to try a small transfusion," Jack said. "A test to see if it works in her body, not just in the lab." A heated debate followed. The human leaders worried about risks both to Jack and to potential human-alien relations if something went wrong. Zephyrian physicians were divided, some eager to try anything that might save their princess, others horrified at the idea of mixing with lesser beings. Princess Lyra settled the argument. Awake and aware of what was happening, she called Jack to her side. "You believe this will help?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I believe it's worth trying," Jack answered honestly. "The worst that happens is it doesn't work." Lyra studied his face for a long moment. "You would give your blood to save a stranger?" "An alien?" Jack smiled slightly. "That's what doctors do. We help people who need helping." "I am not one of your people," she reminded him. "You're a person who needs help," Jack said simply. "That's enough for me." Lyra turned to Coral and the physicians. "Prepare for the procedure. I have decided." The transfusion process was unlike anything in human medicine. Jack watched as his blood was processed through Zephyrian technology, breaking it down into its component parts. The machines identified the specific proteins that affected Zephyrian cells and concentrated them into a glowing blue serum. "This will be enough for a test," Elara explained. "If it works, we will need much more." Jack nodded, trying not to think about how much more might be. The Zephyrians gathered around Princess Lyra's platform. The mood was solemn, ceremonial. Jack stood beside Susan, both holding their breath as Elara administered the serum directly into the princess's chest with a crystal device. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the dark veins nearest to Lyra's heart began to fade. Color returned to her pale skin, a soft blue glow spreading outward from the injection site. Lyra's eyes opened wide, their silver brightness restored. She gasped, not in pain, but in relief. "The pain," she whispered in wonder. "It's receding." Zephyrian physicians rushed to scan her body with their instruments. Elara looked up, her expression one of shock and hope. "The cellular degradation has stopped," she announced, "and the damaged areas are beginning to regenerate." Coral turned to Jack, his earlier skepticism gone. "Your blood is healing her?" said in amazement. "You have done what no other civilization could do," Jack smiled tiredly. "It's just the first step. We need to understand why my blood works better than others and how to produce enough to help all your people." Susan put a hand on his shoulder. "This is just the beginning," she said, "but it's a good beginning." Later, as Princess Lyra rested, Jack stood by a window looking out at Earth shining below. The enormity of what had happened was just starting to sink in. His blood could save an entire alien species. But what would that mean for him, for humanity, for the future? He didn't have the answers yet, but for the first time since the Zephyrian ships appeared, he felt something new: hope. News of the successful treatment spread quickly. Within hours, both the Zephyrian fleet and Earth governments were buzzing with activity. Princess Lyra showed remarkable improvement. The dark veins had faded from her neck and chest, and she could sit up and speak clearly again. Jack found himself suddenly famous. Military officials, scientists, and government representatives all wanted to talk to him. Everyone had questions about his blood and what it meant for human-Zephyrian relations. "We need to set up a proper donor program," Jack explained during a video meeting with Earth's leaders. "Tests show that about 30% of humans have blood that can help the Zephyrians to some degree." "And your blood works best?" asked the United Nations Secretary. Jack nodded. "Yes, for some reason my blood contains higher levels of the proteins they need. We're still trying to understand why." Susan's research team had made progress understanding the science behind it. The proteins in Jack's blood act as a stabilizing agent for their crystalline cellular structure, she explained. "It's similar to how certain treatments work for human autoimmune diseases." Colonel Davis raised a concern that had been growing since the discovery. "How much blood are we talking about? How many donations would be needed to save their entire population?" The room grew quiet. Susan looked uncomfortable. "Based on our calculations and the Zephyrian population size, thousands of donors giving regular donations for several months." "And for the princess?" Davis pressed. Susan glanced at Jack before answering. "Princess Lyra's case is different. Her royal bloodline makes her more sensitive to the disease but also more selective about treatment. Our tests show that only Jack's blood works for her at full effectiveness." Jack already knew this. The Zephyrian physicians had confirmed it. After testing his blood against samples from other humans, something in his specific genetic makeup created the exact proteins that matched the princess's needs. "How much would she need?" Davis asked directly. "To completely cure her ... quotes, Susan hesitated. "More than is safe to take from one person." The meeting ended with no clear decisions. Earth's governments wanted to help but needed time to organize a donor program. They also worried about the politics of giving so much help to aliens who might one day become enemies. Jack returned to the Zephyrian ship feeling frustrated. In the medical chamber, he found Princess Lyra sitting up, looking stronger than before. Her skin glowed with renewed energy, though patches of darkness still showed on her arms and legs. Your leaders are concerned, she said as he entered. Zephyrians? Could sense emotions, Jack had learned, especially strong ones. They're being cautious, Jack replied, checking the monitors that tracked her recovery. This is all new to us. Lyra studied him with her silver eyes. And you? Are you cautious? Too? Jack considered the question. I'm a doctor first. My job is to help people who are suffering, even alien people? She asked with a small smile. People are people, Jack said simply. Doesn't matter where they're from. That evening, Jack met with the Zephyrian physicians to discuss treatment. Options. The temporary improvement from the first small transfusion was already fading. Princess Lyra needed a full treatment soon, or the disease would continue its progress. How much would cure her completely? Jack asked. Alara, the head physician, looked uncomfortable. More than we can safely take from you. The proteins must be fresh and in high concentration. We would need several large donations over a short period. How short? 3 Earth days. Jack did the calculations in his head. It would push well beyond safe human donation limits? No doctor would approve it, and there's no other way. No one else who could help? We have tested all humans in your team, Alara said. None match her needs as you do? It is a rare compatibility. Jack returned to his quarters on the human shuttle. He sat on his bed, thinking hard about his options. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Susan entered, looking worried. I just heard from Colonel Davis. They're pulling us out tomorrow. Earth governments want more time to consider the situation. What? They can't do that. The princess needs treatment now. Susan sat beside him. They're concerned about giving aliens access to human blood without more guarantees. And they're especially worried about you. Me? Your blood is special, Jack, not just for the Zephyrians. Our tests show unusual properties we've never seen before. The military wants to study you before committing to any major treatment program. Jack stood up, angry now. Study me while she dies? While all of them die? I don't agree with it, Susan said quickly. I'm just telling you what they decided. Jack paced the small room. How long would their test take? Weeks, maybe months. They want to understand why your blood is different before they risk losing you. Losing me? Susan looked down. The amount the princess needs... It's dangerous, Jack. Maybe fatal. Jack stopped pacing. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made it real. He thought about Princess Lyra, about the pain in her eyes that was now returning as the treatment wore off. He thought about the thousands of Zephyrians waiting for help. What if I did it anyway? He asked quietly. Susan looked alarmed. Jack? No, that would be... Medical consent is still my right, he said. They can't stop me from donating if I choose to. They can order you not to. You're military, remember? Jack sat back down, thinking. He had always followed orders, been the good soldier. But this felt different. This wasn't about Earth politics or military strategy. It was about saving lives. Later that night, Jack made his decision. He waited until the shuttle was quiet, most of the team asleep. Then he packed a small bag with personal items and slipped out. The Zephyrian guards recognized him and allowed him to board their ship. He found Alara in the medical chamber, monitoring the princess as she slept fitfully. The dark veins had returned, spreading once more across her skin. I want to give a full donation, Jack said without preamble. Enough to cure her. Alara looked shocked. But your leaders, this is my decision, Jack interrupted. Not theirs. You understand the risk? Alara asked, her voice gentle. Taking so much blood in such a short time could permanently harm you, Jack nodded. I understand. But I can't. Just watch her die when I could help. Alara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I will prepare the equipment. Jack recorded a short message on his communicator for Susan and his commanders, explaining his choice. He knew they would be angry, but he hoped someday they would understand. As Alara prepared the transfusion equipment, Princess Lyra woke. She seemed to sense immediately what was happening. You cannot do this, she said, her voice weak but commanding. I forbid it, Jack smiled as he sat beside her. With all due respect, Princess, you don't command Earth military. It could kill you, she insisted. It might, Jack admitted. Or it might just make me very weak for a while. Either way, it's worth the risk. Lyra reached out, touching his hand. Her fingers were cool against his skin. Why would you do this for me? For someone not of your world? Jack thought about his years as a doctor, about the oath he had taken, to help those in need. He thought about the Mars colony and the people he had saved there. He thought about the future that might be possible if Earth and the Zephyrians became true allies. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply, and sometimes that's enough reason. Ilara returned with the equipment ready. Jack rolled up his sleeve and offered his arm. As the needle went in and his blood began to flow, he watched the princess's face. Even now, weak as she was beautiful in an otherworldly way. This will work, he promised her. You're going to be fine. As his blood flowed into the Zephyrian processing unit, Jack felt lightheaded but stayed conscious. He watched as the machine transformed his blood into the glowing blue serum that would save the princess. And despite the risk, despite knowing he might face court-martial or worse when he returned to Earth, he felt at peace with his choice. Some things were worth any price. Time seemed to slow as Jack's blood flowed through the Zephyrian machines. The process took hours. First, the equipment drew his blood in carefully measured amounts. Then it processed the blood, extracting the special proteins. Finally, it delivered the blue serum directly into Princess. Lyra's system through crystal tubes connected to her chest. Jack grew paler with each passing hour. Ilara monitored him closely, concern evident in her glowing eyes. We should stop, she said after the fourth hour. Your vital signs are weakening. Jack shook his head. Keep going. How much more does she need? One more cycle would complete the treatment, Ilara admitted reluctantly. But at this rate, it could cause permanent damage to your system. One more cycle, Jack insisted. I can handle it. His voice sounded weak even to his own ears, but his mind was clear. He had come too far to stop now. The princess watched him from her platform, her silver eyes troubled. Jack, she said softly, using his first name instead of his title for the first time. You have already given more than anyone could ask. Let this be enough. Jack managed a small smile. I don't do things halfway, Princess. Besides, I can see the treatment is working. It was true. The dark veins had receded from most of her body, leaving only traces on her legs and lower arms. Her skin glowed with renewed energy and her voice was stronger by the minute. The final cycle began. Jack felt cold spreading through his body as more blood left his system. His vision blurred around the edges and sounds seemed to come from far away. He focused on breathing, on staying conscious. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Coral burst into the medical chamber. The humans have discovered Lieutenant Miller is missing, he reported urgently. They are demanding his return and threatening to board our vessel. Ilara looked up from her instruments. We cannot stop now. The final cycle is critical. Jack's communicator buzzed. He fumbled for it with numb fingers and saw Colonel Davis's name on the screen. He let it fall back into his pocket unanswered. They'll understand, he mumbled, once they see it worked. But even as he spoke, his body began to fail. The machine had taken too much blood too quickly. Jack felt himself sliding sideways, unable to remain upright. Ilara caught him, easing him down onto a second platform. His heart rate is dropping, she announced urgently. We must stop the procedure. No, Jack protested weakly. Finish it. Through dimming vision, he saw Princess Lyra rise from her platform. Her movements were still stiff, but she could stand. She moved to his side, her face showing emotion for the first time since he had met her. Enough, she commanded. Disconnect him immediately. The Zephyrian physicians obeyed, shutting down the machine and removing the tubes from Jack's arm. But Jack knew it might be too late. His heartbeat felt faint and irregular in his chest. The room spun around him. I think I gave too much, he whispered. Princess Lyra knelt beside him, her face close to his. Why would you do this? Risk everything for someone not of your world? Jack tried to answer but couldn't find the words. His eyes began to close. No, Lyra said firmly. You will not die for me. She placed her hands on his chest. Her touch was cool at first, then began to warm. Jack felt something strange happening. Energy seemed to flow from her hands into his body. The Zephyrian physicians gasped. Princess, the royal bond is forbidden with outsiders, Coral protested. The council is not here, Lyra cut him off. This human is giving his life for mine. I will not allow it. Jack didn't understand what was happening, but he felt strength returning to his limbs. His heartbeat steadied. The cold receded. He opened his eyes to see Lyra glowing brighter than before, the light pulsing from her hands into his chest. What are you doing? He asked. Sharing life energy, she explained, her voice strained. It is something only the royal family can do. A gift passed down through our bloodline. Jack tried to sit up, but you're still healing. You shouldn't be quiet, she commanded with unexpected sharpness. I'm still your princess. Jack couldn't help but smile at that. He lay still, letting the strange energy flow into him. The room had gone silent. The Zephyrian physicians and guards watched in apparent awe. After several minutes, Lyra removed her hands. The glow faded slowly. Jack felt different somehow, lighter, more alert than he should have been after losing. So much blood. That should stabilize you, Lyra said, looking slightly drained but still much healthier than before. Your body will replace the lost blood in time. Before Jack could thank her, the chamber doors slid open. Colonel Davis strode in, flanked by 4 armed soldiers. His face was red with anger. Lieutenant Miller, he barked. You are in direct violation of orders. You are explicitly forbidden from providing any further blood donations without authorization. Jack tried to sit up, but his body was still weak despite Lyra's help. Sir, I can explain. Save it for the court-martial, Davis snapped. He turned to the Zephyrians. This man had no authority to provide treatment. We're taking him back to Earth immediately. Princess Lyra drew herself up to her full height. Even in her weakened state, she commanded attention. The light beneath her skin pulsed with emotion. This human, she said, her musical voice now sharp with authority, has saved my life when your government hesitated. He has shown courage that deserves honor, not punishment. Davis seemed taken aback by her directness but held his ground. With all due respect, Princess, this is an internal military matter. Lieutenant Miller disobeyed direct orders, and in doing so he has secured an alliance between our peoples that might otherwise have died with me, Lyra countered. She moved to stand between Jack and the colonel. If you punish him for this act of compassion, the Zephyrian Collective will reconsider any cooperation with Earth. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the significance of her words. The Zephyrians possessed technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. An alliance could advance human development by centuries. Losing that opportunity would be devastating. Davis looked from the princess to Jack and back again. His expression remained hard, but calculation showed in his eyes. The lieutenant still needs to return with us, he said finally, his tone slightly less aggressive. His health needs to be evaluated by our doctors, Lyra nodded. Of course. But I expect him to be treated as a hero, not a criminal. She turned to Jack, her silver eyes intense. And he will return to us as our official human liaison once he has recovered. It wasn't a request. Jack saw Davis recognize this fact and struggle with it. Finally, the colonel gave a curt nod. We'll discuss official appointments later, he said. For now, we need to get him medical attention. As the soldiers helped Jack to his feet, he looked back at Princess Lyra. Something had changed between them, something more than blood and energy exchange. He felt connected to her in a way he couldn't explain. Thank you, he said simply. She inclined her head slightly. It is I who must thank you, Jack Miller. You have given me back my life. I will not forget. As Jack was led from the chamber, he heard Coral speak quietly to the princess. The royal bond creates a permanent connection. The council will not approve. The council will adapt, Lyra replied calmly, as we all must. Jack didn't fully understand what they meant, but as the doors closed behind him, he felt a curious warmth in his chest, right where Lyra's hands had been. Whatever had happened between them, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 months passed. Earth and the Zephyrian Collective had changed forever. The initial fear of the alien visitors had given way to cautious cooperation. Volunteer centers opened around the world where compatible humans could donate blood to help the Zephyrians. Scientists from both species worked together to understand why the human proteins could save the crystalline aliens. Jack spent 2 weeks in a military hospital recovering from his dangerous blood loss, though the doctors were amazed at how quickly he healed. They kept finding strange readings in his tests. The energy Lyra had shared with him had changed something fundamental in his system. No one on Earth understood exactly what had happened. Throughout his recovery, Jack felt the princess's presence like a warm spot in his mind. Sometimes he would catch glimpses of crystal corridors or hear snippets of musical Zephyrian speech. The royal bond, whatever it was, connected them across the distance between the hospital and her ship. Colonel Davis visited Jack on his last day in the hospital. His anger had cooled, replaced by grudging respect. "The brass has decided not to court-martial you," he announced, standing at the foot of Jack's bed. "Turns out saving an alien princess and securing humanity's first interstellar alliance looks pretty good on paper." Jack smiled. "So I'm not in trouble?" "Oh, you're still in trouble," Davis said, though without real heat. "But your punishment is going to be serving as our official liaison to the Zephyrians, effective immediately." Jack sat up straighter. "Really?" Davis handed him a folder. "New orders. You've been promoted to major. Apparently, the princes insisted on it." Jack looked at the papers in surprise. "Major Miller," he said, testing how it sounded. "Don't let it go to your head," Davis warned. "This assignment won't be easy. You'll be the first human to live aboard their ship long-term. You'll need to learn their ways, their politics, and you'll be overseeing the new medical program." Jack thought about Princess Lyra and the connection they now shared. "I'm ready, sir." Davis studied him for a moment. "There's something different about you since that day. The doctors can't explain it, but I can see it. What did she do to you up there?" Jack wasn't sure how to explain the royal bond. He barely understood it himself. "She saved my life," he said simply, "just like I saved hers." The next day, Jack boarded a shuttle to the Zephyrian flagship. He wore a new uniform with his major's insignia and carried just one bag of personal items. As the shuttle docked, he felt Lyra's presence grow stronger in his mind, expectant, welcoming. Coral met him at the airlock. The tall guard had softened toward Jack since the life-saving transfusion. He even attempted what might have been a smile. "The princess awaits you in the grand hall," he said, leading Jack through the crystal corridors. "Many changes have happened since you were last aboard." Jack noticed the differences immediately. Humans worked alongside Zephyrians throughout the ship. Earth technology had been integrated with the alien systems, and most noticeably, the dark patches of disease were gone. From the Zephyrians they passed. The treatment program was working. The Grand Hall took Jack's breath away. Much larger than the throne room, its ceiling opened to the stars like a massive observatory. Hundreds of Zephyrians and dozens of humans filled the space, gathered in small groups. At the center stood Princess Lyra. She had transformed in the months since Jack had last seen her. Her skin glowed with vibrant health, shifting through colors like a living aurora. She wore ceremonial robes that flowed around her tall frame like water. But most striking was the confidence in her posture. This was no longer a dying princess, but a powerful leader. As Jack approached, the crowd parted for him. Conversation stopped as all eyes turned to watch. Jack felt self-conscious but kept walking until he stood before Lyra. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly. "Major Miller," she replied, her musical voice carrying through the hall. "Welcome home." Home. The word felt right somehow. Through their bond, Jack felt her genuine pleasure at seeing him again. "I'm ready to begin my duties as liaison," he said formally, aware of the watching crowd. Lyra smiled. "Yes, we have much work to do, but first there is something important we must address." She gestured, and a Zephyrian stepped forward carrying A crystal container. Inside was a glowing blue liquid, the same color as the serum made from Jack's blood. Our scientists have succeeded in synthesizing the human proteins, Lyra announced. We no longer need blood donations to treat our people. Murmurs of excitement spread through the crowd. Jack felt a surge of relief. This solved one of the biggest challenges of the Alliance. That's wonderful news, he said sincerely. Indeed, but it creates a new question. Lyra looked at him intently. Your assignment here was primarily to oversee the donation program. Now that program is no longer necessary. Jack hadn't considered this. Would they send him back to Earth? The thought troubled him more than he expected. Lyra seemed to sense his concern. Through their bond, he felt reassurance flowing from her. I have a proposal, she continued. One I have discussed with your leaders and with my council. She extended her hand toward him. Jack hesitated, then took it. Her skin was cool against his, but the point of contact sent warmth flowing up his arm. The royal bond we share is unprecedented, she said, her voice softer now. No Zephyrian has ever connected with another species this way. Our healers have studied it and made a remarkable discovery. The bond is growing stronger, not weaker with time. Jack had noticed this too. Each day he felt her presence more clearly. In his mind, what does that mean? He asked. It means we are linked in ways we don't fully understand yet, Lyra replied. And I believe this connection can help us build something greater than a simple alliance between our peoples. She turned to address the entire hall. Major Jack Miller saved my life when he had every reason not to. He risked everything for someone, not of his world. In doing so, he showed us the best of humanity, compassion that transcends differences, courage that defies boundaries. Lyra faced Jack again. I ask you now to stay not just as a liaison between our peoples, but as my personal advisor and partner in building a true union between Earth and the Zephyrian Collective. Jack felt the weight of the moment. Through their bond, he sensed this was more than a political appointment. The connection between them had created something new, a bridge between two vastly different species. I would be honored, he said. Lyra smiled, and the entire hall seemed to brighten with her joy. Then let us begin this new chapter together. Later, as they stood on an observation deck looking down at Earth, Jack and Lyra spoke more privately. Your blood saved my life, she said. But your courage saved my people. We will not forget. Jack watched his home planet spinning below. I didn't do it to be remembered. I did it because it was right. Lyra's hand found his again. Through their bond, he felt her understanding. That is why the bond chose you, she said softly. That is why I chose you. As stars wheeled overhead and two worlds continued their dance below, Jack realized something profound. His small act of compassion had changed the course of two civilizations. And though challenges certainly lay ahead, the connection between human and alien, between Jack and Lyra, offered hope for a future neither could have imagined alone. Sometimes, the greatest gifts require the greatest courage to give. And sometimes, in saving another, we discover the best within ourselves.